kind of taped onto, centered in this, a little bit further down. Is that centered down?
This is where it was before.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if this is good.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Barely there.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob, very much. Well, today I'm going to talk about a very tragic circumstance that we have in our U.S. military. And my apologies for my throat. I just come back from Afghanistan. I was there for a week, came back on Monday morning, and the pollution that's in the capital city of Afghanistan, the dirt, the dust, the car fumes, the fecal material. It's the only national capital that still has open air sewers, they say. It's a very polluted area, and I'm still trying to get that pollution out, so hopefully I won't hack around too much. And at the very end of this, if you all like for me to talk a little bit about my observations on Afghanistan, I'd be glad to. But since the topic of this talk is about the issue of sexual assault and rape in the military, I'd like to cover that first. As the banner here says, warning, 1 in 3 women raped in the military. I mean, a startling statistic that in a very controlled environment, an environment that prides itself on leadership, on direction, on orders, but also on violence, on training young men and women to learn how to kill other people, doing it in a controlled fashion, only on order, they say. But the violence that is generated within military forces is playing out in a variety of ways. The statistics of 1 in 3 women raped in the military actually aren't that much different from what we find in civilian life, where in civilian women, about 1 in 3 during the course of their lifetime are sexually assaulted or raped. But here in the military, we have a confined period of time. It's not a full lifetime. For most women in the military, it's anywhere from 2 to 6 years, depending on their length of service that they've signed up for. Most women, after they've been sexually assaulted or raped in the military, do not make a career out of the military, as you would expect. Most women get out of the military. Most women don't report their rapes, just as in civilian life. Rape is the most underreported crime we have in America, both in the military and in civilian life. The statistics of 1 in 3 women raped have come from the Veterans Administration, because they are now keeping track of all of this, because they've had so many women who have eventually started talking about their experience in the military, where they have been sexually assaulted or raped. So they're keeping track, and in fact, that's one of the first questions on every intake for a veteran going into the veteran system now. Male or female, because it's just not women that are raped. Men are raped in the military. In fact, at a congressional hearing that I attended last summer, the Deputy Chief of Staff for Personnel for the Army, a 3-star general, General Johnson, was testifying at the hearing, which was titled Sexual Assault of Women in the Military. And after he gave the statistics for Army-wide sexual assault, which were about 2,800 rapes were reported in the Army in the year 2007. One of the congresspersons said, well, you know, you're talking a lot about women in the military being raped. Do guys get raped in the military? Well, the general was quiet, silent. And then finally he spoke and he said, well, of those 2,800 reported in 2007, 10% of them were reported by men. That's 280 guys that got jumped in the shower, or there was a blanket party in their dorm, and they were held down with blankets and sexually assaulted or raped by their own men in their own unit. And if you think how hard it is for a woman in the military or in civilian life to go to the authorities to say, you know, somebody sexually assaulted me and I need help. I need help. You need to go find this person to stop them from doing that. I don't know how hard that is. How hard is it for a guy, particularly in this macho organization called the military, to go to their chain of command to say, somebody raped me, somebody raped me. It's incredibly difficult. So to me, that figure of 280 men that did have the nerve and the courage to go ahead and tell their chain of command what happened, to me that is really just the tip of the iceberg, the little tip of the iceberg. The issue of treatment of women and men after they're sexually assaulted, treatment within their own units. Turns out that a lot of times, members of the chain of command are a part of are either the perpetrators or they're complicit in knowing what's going on and not stopping it. The numbers of young women who now say, well, it was my sergeant that raped me. My sergeant did it. It's, because rape is it's not a sexual act, really. It's an act of power. It's an act of intimidation. It's an act of violence of the spirit more than just a sexual act. It's getting somebody for some reason. So to have members of the chain of command, people that we entrust the leadership positions for these young kids that are just going into the military, these 17 and 18-year-old kids that respect authority, they're taught to in their basic training, they respect these sergeants, and then all of a sudden the sergeant turns on them and then says, if you say one word about this, you could be dead tomorrow. And indeed, there are plenty of circumstances, some very suspicious deaths of women in the military who were sexually assaulted. We know they were sexually assaulted. And then they end up dead. And then the military says, oh, they committed suicide. And when you look at the circumstances as best we know them, from what little the military has given out about the circumstances of their death, you and I as just ordinary citizens would have plenty of questions about them. And then when the parents of these young women have the questions, and then they go to the military to say, there's more to this than just what you've given me. And then when when they demand that investigations be conducted, what really did happen to my daughter? And then slowly but surely information comes back to them. Never given freely by the military, always the parents having to file a Freedom of Information Act for an autopsy report of what did my daughter's body really look like when you say she committed suicide. I've written several articles about some of the deaths of some of these young women, and most of them were posted on commondreams.org. And the title of the articles generally has something about a U.S. military cover-up, because I think there are plenty of cover-ups. We definitely know members of the chain of command have been complicit in saying to young women who are not complicit, I mean they have explicitly told young women who have come to report rapes by their sergeants. You wouldn't really want to harm Sergeant so-and-so's career, would you? You know, he's got a wife, he's got 3 kids. He's been in the military 10 years, 12 years. You know, if you file a complaint against him, he's going to lose his career. The intimidation of senior members of the chain of command to get young women to shut up. It's at such a, and it's reflected in the current policy now for the Department of Defense, because they've had so much of that sort of stuff from the chains of command, intimidating young women not to report it, that now they actually have a two-tier system. One is called restricted reporting, which means you can come to the chain of command and you don't have to say who the perpetrator was. You don't have to say anything, you just have to say, somebody raped me and I need treatment. I need medical treatment, emotional treatment. And that will trigger it. The other part of it is unrestricted reporting, where the young women say, I was raped, I need treatment, and I want to file a complaint. You would think that's what all young women would want to do, but it's not, because they've seen what's happened to a lot of women who file the complaints, and then they become